Okay, 7.5 hours after Slough, I found myself in Edinburgh, and people are actually taking videos of me as I'm doing this video as well, which is interesting too. But why have I come to Edinburgh? Well, for the whole of August, the city of Edinburgh turns into a huge comedy venue. You've got street performers, jugglers, musicians, and stand-up comedians all around the streets of Edinburgh and in all the venues as well, just to bring joy and laughs onto people's faces. So I thought, what a perfect way to end the whole experience with a trip up north to Edinburgh and the Edinburgh Fringe Festival.
Two, one, up. Looked easier on YouTube. Throw it to me on the count of 3. Oh my god. Make some noise!
And I appreciate that. And then later on we get on to the real dangerous stuff.
So I got back from Dover to Slough and got a little bit of rest and then came back out onto the road. 7.5 hours on the road, 9 hours in total including breaks is how long it took me to get here. And when I got here it was pouring down with rain, torrential rain. So rather than wild camping, I ended up booking a hotel room for 2 nights. So quite often when an Amritdhari goes to Punjab, stays with the Dal in the Buddha Dal, or stays with their own Jathe if they're from a different Jathebandi, they kind of go back for a while. They spend that time in Punjab living in the Maryada with the other Fauj, and they come back feeling like their Sikhi has been re-energized. And also when people go to Sikhi camps sometimes, you know, after 4 or 5 days in Sangat, they come back and they feel like they've had a bit of a boost to their Sikhi. And that's exactly what this has done as well. This has been a boost to my Sikhi because the real purpose of Chakrvarti, everything revolves around the Rahat. The number one thing is the Rahat. Waking up Amrit Vela, doing your Nitnem, doing your Ishnan, doing absolutely everything according to Maryada to the best of your abilities. When that is the purpose and that is the sole focus of what you're doing, and everything else, you know, visiting castles, skydiving, staying in a luxury hotel, all of these other things are additional. These are just added onto the whole experience. But the experience is really about the Rahat, really about doing your Nitnem, doing your Bhakti, and emphasizing that. That's why the first videos, in the first 2 videos, that's my emphasis in terms of what I was recording or what I was sharing with you guys, was really on that, on the Rahat, because it was to emphasize how important, how primary the Rahat is to the whole experience, and everything else comes secondary. So just like Netherlands, Belgium and France, Scotland is a place where I came to when I was very young with my family, with my parents and my brother. And I do remember feeling back then, even though I wasn't in Barna, I was still a little Singh with a patka, and my dad was at the start, my brother also had a patka too, and as a family we were all brown. And I do remember, and look, we are going back over 30 years ago, but it felt quite hostile. I kind of came away thinking that Scotland's quite a racist country. That's how I felt. And now it is so different. It just feels like a completely different place in that respect. The architecture is still here, the culture is still here, but the people seem so much nicer than they did when I first came. And it's lovely to see that. A place where I came to and kind of experienced hostility and negative vibes is now the opposite. People have come up to me and asked me about Barna, people are smiling at me and just spreading that joy, that love. What a wonderful experience. I'm home now and I'm just reflecting on what an amazing, incredible time I've had going Chakrvarti. And I think one of the things that really stood out to me is just how smoothly everything went. I didn't have any problems whatsoever. And I thought I might. Particularly going to places where there aren't a lot of Sikhs, going in Barna. I only had positivity from people. Even though I had a lot of attention, none of it was negative. It was all either neutral or positive. And I think evidence of that is that I had my Qurban with me everywhere that I went. Fully out on show, not concealed under my clothes or anything like that. And I thought I might encounter hostility or issues, having a Qurban with me. But not once. Not at all. No snide comments, no hostility, no racism, nothing at all. And that's Maharaj's beyond Kirpa. That is the blessings and the protection from God. It's the only thing that it can be, and I'm eternally grateful for that. Another thing I realized as well is that I never felt lonely the whole time, not once. There were times where I could say, yeah, I'm alone. It feels like I'm alone and it's not an issue. It's just a fact. I'm alone. But even then, there were a lot of times where I had company. I had people who were part of that journey with me. There was Chiadza, who I met in Stonehenge, Pedro in Bath, Gurjeet Singh in Bruges, Jason in Eeklo, Marlene in the Netherlands. And there were a lot of people who were part of this experience. And that includes you, those of you who are watching and supporting, liking my content, commenting and just sending me positivity. I even had people reach out to me and entrust me with their daswand. People actually donated financially to what I was doing. And I'm really humbled by that. And it's because of that there were a few experiences that I was able to enjoy that I may not have otherwise been able to. So again, I'm very, very grateful for all of you who have supported me along the way. And I think the final takeaway point from this whole experience is that I was reminded of just how capable I am, just how self-sufficient I can be. And I think I'd lost sight of that at one point. Like I said, this whole experience went very smoothly. I went Chakrvarti from Slough to Salisbury to Bath to the Wye Valley, then all the way to the Netherlands, Belgium, France, then back to the UK and up to Edinburgh, and maintaining the rehet, being in Barna, and I had no problems, no issues. The biggest issue I ever had was finding a parking spot, and it was a reminder to me of how capable I am. And I really want to thank Baba Joginder Singh Ji, Shanme Crore Panth Padsha, the Jathedar of the Khalsa Panth, because staying in their Sangat, staying with them, really kick-started this whole self-discovery. And it's more than discovering something about myself, it's remembering something that I'd lost about myself. Because when I look back on my life, I've been very independent from a very young age. I moved to Germany on my own and stayed there for 3 months when I was 18 years old. When I went to sixth form and when I went to university, I didn't know a single person at these places, these institutions that I joined. And then when I graduated, I took up a job in Dubai. I went out there and lived alone in Dubai. For the last 3 or 4 years, I've been living on my own. A few years ago, I traveled to South America on my own. And, I shouldn't have really forgotten just how capable I am of being independent and being self-sufficient. I think what happens is, when you come into Sikhi, you have to come with humility. You have to come with nimrata and be willing to learn. I came and I didn't know anything about Maryada, about keeping rehet, about how to live as a Nahang Singh. And I needed the humility to be able to learn from people. And I'm very grateful for that. I'm very grateful for the people who helped me and taught me things along the way. But it's one thing being teachable, and it's another thing giving up authority in your own life. And I think I did that. I didn't just stay humble. I was a little bit too humble. And what I've learned is that you can accept support and guidance, but ultimately you have to keep responsibility for yourself with you, and all authority over your own life has to stay with you. You're the only one that can save you. And I want to thank again Baba Joginder Singh Ji, because he believed in me. He really believed in me. He showed me that he believed in me. And that kind of gave me permission to believe in myself. Like I said, I came with humility, but also quite low confidence into Sikhi. I'd been through quite a lot of trauma at that time. So I've had to rebuild myself. And Babaji has been a really key part of that. And ultimately, I want to thank Babaji and I want to thank Maharaj, because this was all a way of getting closer to Maharaj. This was all done for my relationship with Maharaj, my relationship with God. It was to live in a way that pleases God and brings the best out of me. And if I say I'm capable and self-sufficient, it's all because of Maharaj. It's all because God has given me the skills and the mindset to be able to do what I've just done. And I'm eternally thankful for Maharaj. So I want to wrap it up there. Like I say, it's been an incredible experience, and I'm so thankful for every one of you who's been part of it, to Babaji and also to Maharaj themselves. And until the next time we meet, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.